All right, everybody, we've got a quick one for you today. You guys know I do a lot of videos on Bronze Age horror, and I wanted to take some time to talk about last week's Heritage Signature Auction. If you don't know what that is, obviously, you know, Heritage does comic book options all the time. Every week they have one, but every couple months they have their signature auction, which is their biggest and best books that aren't very common, higher grades of books that typically aren't very affordable, and they just bring out the best of the best, all right? So in last week's signature auction, they had a few Bronze Age horror books, specifically DC Bronze Age horror, which still, as we say, right, DC is still the king of Bronze Age horror, and they had some good ones there. So we're going to look at the results, and these are high grade copies. And usually with the signature auction, it brings out a lot of eyes that you don't see on a normal basis and some deeper pockets, people that are willing to spend more money. And a lot of times the results are very favorable, a lot of record-setting sales. But the results this time were a little bit surprising, especially for some books that I'm going to show you that you don't see very often in these grades. All right, so let's get into it. All right, first up, House of Secrets 92. There were actually two copies of this, so I'm going to show you the 9.6 first of all. It's an off-white to white page, and that's okay though, because I'm going to compare to previous sales that were also off-white to white pages. Bernie Wrightson cover, arguably the most popular of all the DC Bronze Age horror books, arguably, right? There are some other ones up there as well, but this is certainly one of them. So 9.6 off-white to white pages ended at $24,400. That includes the buyer's premium, all in $24,400. Huge price. Let's see how this book has done in the past. So again, we're looking at the 9.6. This is GP Analysis, where I get all of my pricing data from past sales. So you look here, here's the 9.6. Look at the graph, and you see this drop off. Well, here's why. So here's the 2026 sale from last week, $24,400. You look at the previous sales in 2025, and if I expand this, a lot higher. So two sales last year, the first one was $45,600, and the one after that was $30,600, and now this one is $24,400. This book is dropping in at least in a 9.6. And when you look at it, $24,400 is the lowest price since 2017. Now, to be fair, there was a big gap between sales here between 2017 and 2021. So regardless, this book keeps dropping, and I'm not sure why, right? Is this a statement on Bronze Age horror, or is this a book people are just getting tired of? But anyway, let's keep going, see if we have a trend here or if we have some positive points as well. So again, House Secrets 92, Bernie Wrightson again, same book, 9.4 off-white to white pages. All right, this one, $12,800. How did the 9.4 fare? Well, you can see the overall graph. It's peaked and a slow downward trend. Here's our $12,800 sale from last week. And you look at the previous sale from 2025, $14,420. So another almost $2,000 drop. Now, what was the page quality of this one? Let's find out. Off-white to white pages. So same thing. This book that was sold by my comic shop last year, off-white to white pages. I didn't look to see if it was the same book. Cert number 6001. Let's go back to this one. Cert number, nope, different cert number unless they had it regraded. But anyway, almost a $2,000 drop there. So House Secrets 92 in two of the highest grades, dropping, both of them, fairly decent drops. All right, let's go on to the next one, House of Secrets. This is a House of Secrets video. So there were a lot of nice House of Secrets books in this sale. So a lot of high grades. This one, probably the most surprising of the bunch. House of Secrets 123, the melting ice cream face. I mean, look at that. Very, very cool cover, kind of gruesome. And this cover is done by Frank Robbins. So not your typical Bernie Wrightson, Neil Adams cover that people go crazy for, but people do go crazy for this book. So in a 9.8, which you don't see very often, and it's white pages, my friends, $6,700. And let's compare to the previous sales. So here we go here, 2026, $6,700. Look at this. 2 sales last year. And I'm going to give you a little bit of insight here so you can see what's going on. So this book, same cert number, sold twice last year. The first time it sold for $7,500. And the second time in September, and that was in April. And then it went up for sale again in September for $13,200. So surprising that book went up for sale twice in 6 months, but maybe not surprising. Maybe the person who got in April got a deal and then they sold it again, knowing that they could get a better price on it. And fast forward to a year and it's a 50% drop. So what happened here, you guys, is this book on the downward trend? Was it overpriced last year? Was the $13,000 sale just a couple people going crazy in the bidding war? And I'm assuming this was a heritage sale when it's underlined here. Yep, heritage sale. And by the way, white pages as well. But sometimes there are bidding wars in these heritage sales and prices go crazy. But why didn't it go crazy this time, right? It was another signature auction. And for some reason, it sold for 50% of the price from 5 months ago. So I don't know what's happening. I do know who bought this book, and congratulations to him. I think he got a steal, but I know some people will say, well, the market was just kind of correcting because that 13K sale was unrealistic. So regardless, I think it was a great buy, and man, great book to have. But let me know what you think. Was this a steal, or is this where the value should be? All right, next one. House of Secrets 103, another Wrightson cover, black cover. People love this. Look at how beautiful that is. So hard to get in high grade. I'm kind of going closely here around the corner. This top left corner has a little bit of something going on there. But the spine looks really, really nice. I'm sorry, I keep falling off of this one. The bottom left corner, also something going on there. There's a spine tick there. I'm not saying this shouldn't be a 9.8, but there are definitely better looking 9.8s. Regardless, beautiful book. Really hard to get this cover in a 9.8. So anyway, final price, $4,392. And let's look at previous sales. 9.8 white pages. All right, previous sales. So one sale, no sales in 2025. The last 9.8 to sell, and I checked, it is a white pager, was 2024, $5,040. Let's just double check, make sure it was white pages. Yes, it was. And of course, another heritage sale was probably another signature auction. So there you go. What drop is that? 10, 15% drop, something like that. Who knows, right? With 9.8s not selling very often, again, right? The $5,000 sale could have been, you know, an overpriced book or people that went crazy and now people are settling a little bit. Regardless, all 4 of these examples we looked at, all these House of Secrets books are dropping in price. But we've got one more example we're going to go through, and maybe we're going to end on a good note here. So this is House of Secrets 105. This is a beautiful cover. All right, Jack Sparling, who, if you watch some of my October videos where I talk about the top 10 covers, Jack Sparling pops up more than once with some of his covers because there's something else, right? And you can see this skull floating in the pond here or the lake, and these kids are off fishing in the background, not knowing what's going on. You see the dragonfly hanging out on this skull. Really, really well done. One of my favorites for sure. Jack Sparling, severely underrated. So here we go. This is the lowest price of the 9.8s we looked at tonight. Lowest prices of any of the books we looked at tonight. So $3,172 again, buyer's premium included. This is everything. And again, it's 9.8 white pages. All right. From February 1973, the month I was born. And how did this sale compare to previous ones? Well, This one's kind of easy because there hasn't been a sale of a 9.8 since 2014, and that was for $700. And we know back in 2014, not a lot of people were talking about Bronze Age horror. That was not the thing, right? Superhero stuff was gaining momentum, and everyone was going crazy over Marvel movies, and really not a lot of attention to Bronze Age horror. So what can we say about this price? Definitely a strong price. Should it have sold for more? I don't know. You guys tell me. When you look at the 9.6 sales, what does that trend look like? There was a sale back in December of 2025, so a couple months ago, and the trend is nothing but up on this book for 9.6. And then if I got to go down to a 9.2 for a recent sale. Almost the same thing for 9.2, a little bit of a dip here. It went from $480 down to $434. But regardless, this book overall is up. So I'm going to call this a win and ending this video on a positive note. So not a complete disaster for DC Bronze Age horror, but it is a little surprising. I want to know what you guys think. Is something going on with Bronze Age horror, especially considering this was the Heritage Signature auction? We rarely see huge drops in prices like this. So let me know your thoughts on it. So what's my opinion on this whole thing? Well, I have listened to a few people talk, and I've heard some people say, well, Bronze Age horror is only popular during Halloween season, and we're far away from fall. I don't know if I necessarily buy into that, because if you watch my last video, Charlton Bronze Age horror is going crazy. Some of those books are skyrocketing right now, and it's March, right? Some of those sales were in February, but why are those going up? I think it has more to do with, yes, we've been talking about Bronze Age horror for many years now, right? It's been hot for a long time. And maybe some of the more common books and some of the more common issue numbers, people are cooling off a little bit on. And what collectors of some of these more obscure books tend to do is, when they become not so obscure anymore and a lot of people start talking about them, they look for the next rarest thing, or the next thing that people haven't been talking about. And a new cover pops up, and ooh, now that I look at that, that is pretty cool. And there aren't a lot of those on the census, so let's put our money into that. And that starts going up, right? And then people start submitting those books to the census, right? They're hot. Let me send it to CGC. And then the census grows a little bit, and then that cools off. I just think we're kind of in that cycle right now. Do I think this could be a trend throughout the year? Yeah, I do. I think with some of the more common titles and issue numbers, I think we'll see some of the prices cool a little bit. Maybe not every single time with every single grade, but in general, I think so. And I'll do videos on it to keep you guys updated. But the more obscure stuff that we haven't been talking about, those things will remain hot or become hot. All right. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Again, this was a quick one. Just wanted to get this one out because I thought the results were really interesting and I wasn't expecting it, especially a 50% drop on a huge book. But again, I think there are reasons for everything here. I hope you enjoyed it. Looking forward to your comments. Until next time, have a great day.